Before we get into why everybody hates BMI, let's, at the risk of teaching you and your grandmother to suck eggs, let's discuss what BMI is. BMI stands for Body Mass Index. Its units are kilograms per metre squared, and we find out your BMI by measuring your weight and dividing that by your height times your height. I'll get into exactly why we do that later, and why it's quite an amazing thing that we do it that way. In just a moment. Bit of history. It was invented in the 1840s by a Belgian polymath, a guy called Adolphe. Don't say Adolphe, it's Adolphe because he's Belgian. Adolphe Quetelet, I think I've got that right. And he was a polymath, a scientist. He loved science, and he invented a couple of new disciplines. One of them was the measuring of these things. He called it anthropometry. So this would be the measurement of anything that's variable about humans, from populations and the way they behave and the way they are, the way they act, and also your individual measurements, your height, your weight, your intelligence, the speed you can run, your pulse rate. All these things are all measurable. Anything that's measurable, he believed lay on a bell curve, and the evidence seems to bear that out as well. And as such, he also postulated that those bell curves could be used to, when you interact them, they could be usefully predictive. And he gave the name to that science, social physics. And as part of social physics, I don't know whether it's a term still used or not, but as part of social physics, he invented the Quetelet index, now called BMI, the Body Mass Index. Now, when Adolphe invented it, he didn't intend for it to be a way for you to see whether you're too fat or not. That wasn't the idea originally. It was just population study that he was interested in. However, it's been used more recently to chart whole populations and their health. This is what sort of health workers use BMI for. But it's also used to start off conversations between doctors and patients. They can give you a number and go, that's too high, it's your BMI number, let's do something about it. Now, this is because BMI is now used, and it serves quite well as an approximation for your percentage body fat. It's not just an approximation for your percentage body fat. And this is what I love about BMI. Miraculously, it's a gender-neutral approximation for percentage body fat. Now, why am I saying gender-neutral? Well, you may or may not know this, but women should be fatter than men. Like, in pretty much every case. All healthy women should be fatter than all healthy men. But it depends which charts you're going by, and because this is all a game of how long is a piece of string, but the medical advice coming in on a healthy body fat content for women seems to lie, that entire range seems to lie either outside the male range or they only overlap ever so slightly. The ranges I quoted in my book, and I'm annoyed at myself because I can't find them anymore, so I've got no reference for this, but I did read them correctly. The ranges for men went for 8% to 19% percentage body fat. That's percentage of your entire body weight. So from below 10% to less than 1/5. For women, it went from 21% to 32%. This is the healthy range percentage body fat. So from 1/5 to nearly 1/3 of a woman's body percentage can be fat, and you will still be within the healthy range. Notwithstanding, BMI, body mass index, still approximates very well for men and for women. Well, how can this be? When women need to be fatter than men, like considerably. How does body mass index cope with that? This simple thing where you measure your weight and divide it by your height times your height. Well, it's because body mass index clumsily scoops up information about your muscles and about your bones as well. And in the same way that men need less fat than women, their bones are more dense and their muscle is heavier. There's more muscle for men and the opposite for women. And that is how the correlation is good for both men and women. It's gender neutral. In fact, the correlation, if you know about R numbers and correlation coefficients, which go from 0, poorly correlated, not correlated at all the way to 1, which is perfect correlation. BMI to PBF, percentage body fat, for men is 0.735, which is According to the BMJ, the British Medical Journal, that makes it a strong correlation. And for women, it's 0.799, which is very nearly very strong in terms of a correlation. But both men and women have a strong correlation with BMI to PBF, percentage body fat. So it's good, it's well correlated, but it's not a perfect correlation. Which brings me on to, why do people hate, like viscerally hate, BMI, which is quite funny because we get visceral fat. There are two reasons as far as I can work out. There's an irrational reason, which is irrational and emotional, and then there's a rational and justifiable reason. Let's do the irrational and emotional. BMI nowadays, as introduced to people via their doctor as a conversation starter, it's a messenger. It's not a neutral messenger bringing you either good news or bad news. Most of the time, it's bringing you bad news. Not only is it a messenger bringing you bad news, it's a messenger bringing you vague and unrelatable news. It's a bit like a king waiting to find out if his army is getting defeated, getting routed in the latest battle, and a messenger runs back to the king's palace. I don't know why the king's not fighting, he should be. But anyway, he's back home at the palace, he's a cowardly king. And the messenger's like panting and wheezing, and he's run back from the battlefield. And instead of saying to the king, your troops have been routed, they're losing, we've lost this night and that night and the other night, and this many men have been shot by archers. Instead of that, he just says, well, there's a bunch of horses running free with no riders, and they're your horses. That's going to infuriate the king. That kind of correlates, you can imagine, to the number of men that have been felled and killed, but they may have dismounted because it was too boggy for horses. The information's not good enough. And you could see why a king like that would shoot the messenger. They warn kings, don't shoot the messenger. But in that instance, you can see why he'd be tempted to, because the messenger's blooming useless. It's come back with information about horses. I don't want to know about horses, I want to know about men. How many of my men are still fighting? So BMI does the same thing. BMI gives kind of tangential information. It's vague and unrelatable. So that's the first reason. But then the second reason is rational and justifiable. And it's simply this: BMI serves some people really poorly. Because it scoops up information about your bones, your muscles, because it scoops up about your water, the food you've eaten, whether you need to pee or not, all the grizzle and goo that makes up the wonderful you standing before you in the mirror. It scoops it all up. And because of that, it serves many people really badly. Athletes have a higher muscle mass, usually, than non-athletes. That pushes their BMI up. Bodybuilders especially so. They are so poorly served by BMI. Arnold Schwarzenegger, at the peak of his career, when he was Conan the Barbarian, at the peak, one could argue, of his physical beauty, hardly an ounce of fat on him. He had a BMI of 31. He was obese, technically. You'd imagine the conversation between Arnold and his doctor. He'd have wrung his neck. It doesn't serve people, but it's not just athletes. It also serves people who just do have water retention issues, people who are medically ill, perhaps people who genuinely have big bones, dense bones. We rely on a bell curve. You could be one of the people with dense bones just by dint of your own biology. It serves you badly. You might have naturally high or naturally low muscle mass. Again, BMI serves you badly. And the correlation of BMI to PBF, percentage body fat, drops off as you age. And it's appalling for children. I remember my son and his class, they got measured and their BMIs were issued to all the parents. There was almost a meltdown at the school gates. All the parents going, hey, my kid's fat. All of them. My kid was scooped up in this, my lad. He was fat, apparently. He was overweight. His BMI made him overweight. And to be fair, to look at him, he looked a little bit maybe chunky-ish at the time. Then he hit puberty, stretched out like a piece of plasticine. And now he's a strapping young lad, really tall. He's stringy, he's yet to fill out. He's fine. His BMI is well in the middle now. He's very healthy. But it was just his age. It's kids, So BMI serves people badly. And then I mentioned last week, in the last video, I talked about how whilst we might have the same BMI as each other, between the races, what that BMI tells you in terms of health outcomes is different. And that is incendiary. And again, this feeds into the first reason, the irrational and emotional reason. I hate to say it, if BMI is telling you because of the colour of your skin, you need to eat less food than your white counterpart, I mean, that's going to enrage you, understandably so. But it's the numbers, it's the science. Now, there's a way around this. You could get rid of your scales and your tape measure, save yourself a bit of money, and just for a bit of change from behind the sofa, you'd be able to buy yourself a DEXA unit, a dual energy X-ray absorptiometry detector. And they're coming in, I looked them up, you can pick one up now from between $40,000 to $50,000. So you could go that route. And that'll tell you exactly how fat you are and exactly how muscly you are, and that would solve all the debates. But back in the real world, many, many people are using BMI, hated as it is, as inaccurate as it is, as poorly correlated as it is to anything meaningful. And I use BMI. In the last video, I was going, right, first choose your target BMI, work backwards from there, and then find out how much food you should be eating. So why do I do that? It's so sketchy, it's so janky, it's so unpopular. Why am I using BMI? Well, as I've mentioned a couple of times in these videos, it's because this is the easy way to lose weight and stay thin. Not the difficult, complicated way. And BMI is really easy. It's not just easy to find out your BMI using a tape measure and a set of scales, but it's also the only way you can get an MRI, a maintenance reference intake back. It's the only way that the calculators consider your statistics and then spit back out a very useful maintenance reference intake, the amount of food you should be eating each day, which is what we were after. That was the number we wanted. And that's why I use BMI. I can hear the commenters tapping away already going, oh, hang on a minute. What about waist to height ratio? You don't even need a set of scales for that. You just need a tape measure, just a flexible tape measure. Get at it. Measure your waist, measure your height, make sure your ratio is below 0.5. So that is the idea that your waist should be no more than half the distance between your toes and the top of your head. There's a couple of problems with this. The first one is it's difficult to get an accurate measurement. It's very easy to get an accurate measurement of your height. You take your shoes off, you stand with your heels at the skirting board, straight back up against the wall. You get somebody to mark on the wall where a square book, the corner of the book meets with the wall. They mark a little pencil mark and then you measure that pencil mark. That will be accurate to within half a centimetre. It's a very accurate measurement. Your weight, just need a decent set of scales. It should be a very accurate measurement. But this, you measure around your waist, it's a nightmare. It's got to go right across the belly button. But if you sort of stand like that, poor posture, then you're gonna end up with a wider circumference than if you stand all erect and upright. And then you can slip up and down. We're knocking on a bit as middle-aged people. We got bulges and folds. Even the thinner ones amongst us have bulges and folds. Where that tape lies around your waist, well, when I did it, I could get a variability of 10 centimetres. And that's no use. And then there's the other problem. Okay, so you end up with your waist to height ratio. What do you do with that? There's no calculators available, and I've looked. Please tell me if you find one. There's no online calculators available that ask for waist and height measurements. They ask for height and weight measurements. They're based on BMI. As far as I know, there are not robust and useful charts that relate waist to height and exercise level, obviously, to how much food you should be eating. So you're going to have to work backwards through the BMI charts, whichever way you cut this. Look, the reason I mentioned the calculator, the reason I mentioned BMI, the reason I say, set a target is because I wanted to put you in a ballpark. We're not precisely measuring every single calorie we eat. That's not what we're doing. We're giving ourselves a picture, a view of where we need to be heading. And that's why I use BMI. As hated as it is, as rubbish as it is, as sketchy and janky as it is, it's useful for our purposes. And that is because we are looking for the easy way to lose weight and stay thin. Now, you may not agree with me, and if not, comment below. I will read your comments. I want to know what you think about what I've had to say about BMI as rubbish as it is, why I'm still using it. In the next video, I want to look at, in more detail, how sex, age, height, race, and exercise level all affect how much food you should be eating. Only one of those is variable, and that is exercise level. I touched on exercise level and race in the last video, but I want to go over in more detail in the next video, if for no other reason than I think it gives you a broader picture and it's interesting. So I'd love to see you there. In the meantime, like, subscribe, and comment below. Take care.